Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Okay, let's dive into this, because today we're actually going to completely shift gears and fundamentally rethink how we understand money itself. We tap our cards, we scan QR codes, we send transfers every single day without a second thought. But honestly, we rarely stop to consider the invisible architecture literally keeping those actions afloat. Because the reality of what we casually call digital payments is actually way more fragile than most of us realize. And as you'll see, a massive paradigm shift is already underway. Let me pose a question to you. If the power grid fails tomorrow, does your money still exist? Seriously, take a second and really think about it. We inherently trust that the balance flashing in our banking app is our money. But almost everything we categorize as a digital payment today, it's really just account money moving through digital channels. It's simply a number sitting in some institution's remote ledger. And here's the kicker. It fundamentally relies on a live, active network to verify it. 55 million. It's an absolutely staggering number. That represents 55 million people who abruptly, totally lost access to their money in a single day, entirely without warning. Now, what's really interesting about this is that massive number represents a very real, very recent event. Back on April 28, 2025, the power grid of Spain and Portugal collapsed for over half a day. And just like that, the digital payment infrastructure simply ceased to exist. Poof! Card terminals went completely silent, ATMs just stopped dead. Imagine walking out the door that morning thinking, well, why would I need cash? I've got my card, right? Suddenly, by noon, you couldn't even buy a loaf of bread. Because without electricity and a network connection, account money isn't just worth less, it is literally worth nothing until that network comes back online. And you know what? It doesn't even take a direct technical failure of the power grid itself to cause a catastrophe. Take the summer of 2026, for example. A massive, prolonged drought pushed the Danube River to historic lows in Hungary. Now, because the country's main nuclear plant relies on that exact river for cooling, the whole nation came incredibly close to a total power shutdown. Not from a sophisticated cyber attack, not from a software glitch, but simply because it didn't rain. Our entire modern financial ecosystem demands 100% network uptime, yet it rests precariously on natural elements like rainfall. When the grid is threatened, the entire system is threatened. But beyond the physical network, there's also the profound issue of control. Think about the global infrastructure for a moment. The vast majority of European card payments run on Visa and MasterCard, right, which is US infrastructure. Then look at Brazil's Pix system. Brazil built this highly successful, super cheap domestic payment network. But in 2026, it was hit with 25% US tariffs following a trade investigation. Even Europe's EPI Euro or the digital euro, they still operate on that exact same fundamental account-based ledger system. The stark reality is that infrastructure is geopolitical leverage. Simply put, what you don't operate, you don't control. If an entire country is relying on foreign systems, it becomes instantly vulnerable to external political decisions. Let's move to and see how this builds a really compelling case for something entirely different. When we actually compare account money side by side with physical cash, the differences are huge. Account money is completely dependent on a network. Every single user is identified and transactions pass through this long, complicated chain of intermediaries. But on the flip side, physical cash, it works perfectly offline, it's totally anonymous, and it moves directly from person to person. We've grown so accustomed to the sheer convenience of our apps that we kind of treat cash like it's this obsolete relic. But structurally, they are exact mirror images of each other.
In fact, physical cash is actually an incredible piece of centuries-old engineering that possesses 5 distinct, let's call them superpowers. Number 1, complete finality. When a physical banknote changes hands, the transaction is over, instantly. 2, it asks nobody. It works perfectly offline, even in the middle of a massive blackout. 3, it builds no profile. Literally, nobody is recording what you just bought. 4, it belongs to everyone. There are absolutely no barriers to entry. No bank account needed, no app, no credit check required. And 5, it moves directly hand-to-hand with zero middleman. The crazy thing is, none of these remarkable properties have ever been digitally reproduced all at the exact same time.
And that brings us to a really revolutionary concept: true digital cash. By definition, this is a proposed third form of money. Make no mistake, this is not just digitized account money like your credit card or Apple Pay, and it's definitely not a standard central bank digital currency either. In true digital cash, the actual value lives inside the digital banknote itself. It works offline, moves directly from hand to hand, and it keeps the buyer totally anonymous to the merchant. It basically gives us those amazing superpowers of physical cash, but without the old paper era weaknesses, like physical theft or geographic limitations. But here is the catch. To make digital cash work securely, you need absolutely flawless cryptography. And historically, we've had a huge problem with that. Just look at the string of absolute disasters back in 2011. Komodo certificates were breached. RSA, a literal titan of cryptography, got hacked via a simple phishing email titled something ridiculous like 2011 recruitment plan, which ended up compromising 40 million secure ID tokens used by defense contractors. Then DigiNodar got hacked and was driven completely into bankruptcy. For 40 years, the cybersecurity industry has basically spent its time building thicker and thicker walls around master keys. And for 40 years, attackers have consistently broken in. Why? Because the defender has to succeed every single day, while the attacker only needs to get lucky once.
So the crucial point is really captured perfectly right here. The structural flaw is the assumption itself, that there exists a real master key somewhere, and the game is to protect it. Honestly, if a master key exists anywhere, it can and probably will eventually be stolen. It's like putting your absolute most valuable crown jewels into better, more expensive safes, and then acting shocked when the safe inevitably gets cracked by a pro. The real question we need to be asking ourselves is whether there needs to be anything in that safe to begin with.
What if the key never existed? Think about the sheer magnitude of that for a second. If there is no single master key to steal, the entire hacking model that has plagued us for 40 years falls apart entirely, completely vanishes. And this brilliantly illustrates how we actually achieve that. The solution lies in distributed key generation combined with threshold signing. Basically, here's how it works. Key fragments are created independently in completely separate locations. Then, a mathematical threshold is set. Let's say 2 out of 3 parts are needed to sign a transaction. So maybe 1 fragment is on your phone and 2 are on separated servers. When a signature is needed, these partial computations combine to validate it without the full key ever assembling in one place at one time, ever. A key that never exists in one single piece literally cannot be stolen by hackers. Even if a server is breached or your phone gets swiped, the attacker doesn't get a whole key. So that massive master key flaw, it's fundamentally solved.
Now you might be sitting there wondering, okay, this sounds like some crazy theoretical lab experiment, but check this out. This technology is actively running in production today. A MiCA-licensed European crypto asset service provider is actually using this exact non-interactive distributed key generation right now, operating directly under the supervision of the Central Bank of Latvia. It's live, it's regulated, and it is handling real money for real clients. They've successfully tackled the practical, applied cryptography, things like smoothly replacing a lost device on a Sunday morning without ever exposing a master seed. It's a real game changer. So, we've got a way to mathematically secure this digital cash without a master key, fundamentally solving the security problem. But that leaves us with one massive looming paradox for true digital cash. As we all know, digital files can be copied perfectly, endlessly, and at exactly zero cost. So, without a live network or a central ledger there to verify everything, what on earth stops someone from simply copying a digital banknote and spending it twice offline? That right there is the infamous double spending problem. How do you catch a fraudster when there's no network around to even ask? Well, that is a fascinating paradox, and it's exactly what we'll have to explore next time. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember, keep questioning how your world really works.